year 70 of the Cosmic Era. With tensions between the plants and the Earth Alliance at an all-time high, war became inevitable. Estimating that 3 mobile armors were the equal of 1 Zaft mobile suit, the Earth Alliance expected that with their overwhelming numbers, they could put a quick and decisive end to any conflict they had with Zaft. And so they decided to push their advantage and declared war on the plants. However, they would soon find out that they were sorely mistaken. Their original estimate of 3 mobile armors for every Zaft mobile suit had to be quickly adjusted to 5 mobile armors for a single Zaft machine. To make matters worse yet, due to the Alliance's indiscriminate use of nuclear missiles, Zaft High Command decided to drop N-jammers onto Earth, a strategy that would not only prevent them from using nukes, but also rendered their nuclear plants completely useless. This so-called April Fool's crisis caused an unprecedented energy crisis, resulting in an equally unprecedented famine. Suddenly, the Earth Alliance's show of force had turned into a desperate struggle for survival instead. Fortunately for the Earth Alliance's warmongers, Rear Admiral Dwayne Halberton of the Atlantic Federation had foreseen this, and 1 year prior to this disaster had spearheaded the G Project. The main goal of this top-secret operation was to develop 5 state-of-the-art mobile suits that could outperform those fielded by Zaft. These machines were hence nicknamed G-weapons. What the G stood for was never officially confirmed, but the 2 main theories are that it either stands for Genesis or Genocide. Whatever the case might be, the biggest hurdle to overcome for this project would be developing an OS that could allow for naturals to effectively pilot a mobile suit on the same level as a coordinator. This turned out to be a long and arduous task that wouldn't be solved until much later. Instead, to give their mobile suits a fighting chance, 2 brand new technologies were introduced. The first was miniaturized beam technology that gave each of the G-weapons the firepower of a battleship without the need for any bulky equipment. The second was phase shift armor, a special armor system that rendered the mobile suit impervious to physical attacks. Physical attacks like those of the main weapons used by Zaft's main mobile suit, the Jin. The system did suffer from some major drawbacks though. When active, it constantly drained the battery, and it required even more energy when deflecting an enemy attack. Worse yet, on most of the G weapons, it drew energy from the same battery as their powerful beam weaponry. So once the phase shift armor was gone, so were most of their weapons. It wasn't an ideal situation, but given the state of their OS, it was estimated that this would give them the best fighting chance. At first, work progressed slowly, but once the war broke out, the project started picking up speed. Wrecked Jins became available for analysis, and they brought Morgan Rate on board, the Orp Union's state-owned weapons manufacturer. While Orp was officially neutral, they decided to pursue this partnership so that they could build mobile suits for themselves based on the technology they acquired from this partnership. And with this, it wouldn't be long before the Earth Alliance had their own mobile suits. The first machine, the GAT-X101, never made it past the simulation stages and, as far as we know, never received a name either. But the second unit, the GAT-X102 Duel, was a success, and it would serve as a prototype for all other machines that followed it. First of all, it laid the foundations for the X100 frame, the same frame that would be used for machines like the Buster and the Strike, and even for the X200 frame, a variation of the X100 frame that was designed to incorporate special equipment. And second of all, its weapons layout would also be very influential for many Earth Alliance mobile suits to come. It had two head-mounted Eagle-Stellung Seawiz guns, a feature seen in almost every subsequent Earth Alliance machine, two beam sabers, a standard that would be adopted by later Alliance mass production units, a 57mm high-energy beam rifle with underslung 175mm grenade launcher that would influence the beam rifle of the later Strike Dagger, a 350mm rail bazooka, and a shield. Again, something that would become standard on Alliance machines. So while the Duel wasn't a particularly powerful or exceptional machine, it was perfect for what it needed to be. A well-rounded, high-performance mobile suit that would serve as a testbed for the Alliance. And it did so very well until the machine was stolen by Zaft. And they too thought that the Duel lacked power. So to upgrade it, they took inspiration from the Jin Assault type. This was a Jin upgraded with extra armor and weapons known as the Assault Shroud. It was a successful conversion, just not a widely adopted one, due to newer mobile suits like the Saigo hitting the scene at around the same time. With this in mind, a new set of Assault Shroud armor was developed for the Duel. Similarly to the Jin's Assault Shroud, it consisted of extra armor and extra weapons. These being a 115mm Shiva railgun and a 5-barreled 200mm missile pod. To offset the weight added by these and the armor, extra thrusters were mounted on the backpack and on the legs. This trade-off worked quite well in space, but not so much on the ground, where they significantly weighed the Duel down. Fortunately, most of its combat would take place in space, giving both the mobile suit and its pilot, Isaac Joule, a chance to shine. The final issue then with the Assault Shroud was that because it was simply bolted onto the armor of the Duel, it wasn't protected by the phase shift armor. As for what else Zaft did with the Duel Gundam, it's not a whole lot. Apart from upgrading it with the Assault Shroud, it had its data extracted, along with the other 3 stolen G weapons, so that it could be used in Zaft's own upcoming mobile suits. In fact, the only thing from the Duel Gundam that was directly further developed was the Zaft-made Shiva railgun, that then became the basis for the Freedom's Xifios railguns. However, on the Alliance side, the Duel's legacy would last a little bit longer. Even though they lost the original, they didn't lose the ability to make more of them. While we can't say exactly how many were made, we do know of at least 2 other units. The first one came to be through a collaboration between the Earth Alliance and various defense conglomerates, the main one being Action Industries. The goal of this Action project was to take the original G weapons and customize them for use by Phantom Pain Ace pilots. In the case of the Duel, this resulted in the Blue Duel, piloted by Moody Holcroft, a close combat machine that was designed to operate in tandem with 2 of its sister units, the Strike Noir and the Berde Buster. In short, the Blue Duel was a refined version of Zaft's Duel and Assault Shroud combo. Previously, the Earth Alliance had already tried to replicate it with the Long Dagger and the Dual Dagger, 2 mass production versions of the Duel that were mostly comprised of Strike Dagger parts, supplemented by some extra parts to make it look more like the Duel. As part of this, the Assault Shroud was also copied and ended up looking even bulkier than the original. Functionally, it was almost the same, and the only big difference was the name, Fortestra. And for those who want to know more about these units, I'll have a link on screen and down below to my Strike Dagger development history video. As for the Blue Duel then, they took a completely different approach. Rather than having the Assault Shroud or Fortestra as an add-on armor, they now made it the Duel's actual armor. Not only did this significantly reduce the Blue Duel's weight, but it also made it so that it was covered by a variable phase shift armor. The latter being an improvement of the regular phase shift armor that was more energy efficient. In addition to this, the armor was also strategically placed on the body so as not to hinder its range of movement, ensuring that the Blue Duel was both well armored and extremely agile in its role as a close combat unit. In terms of weaponry then, it again used refined versions of the aforementioned units. In its head, it now had 12.5mm Todesschrecken Seawiz guns rather than the 75mm Eaglestellung ones. The beam sabers were replaced with a newer version that was derived from those used by the Windam and the Daggerel, and then another weapon taken from those machines were the 3 stiletto rocket-propelled anti-armor penetrators that were stored in the left shoulder. In addition to functioning as a last resort dagger, they could also be thrown and exploded on impact. Most commonly, Moody would throw all 3 of them at once. Next up were 2 M7G2 retractable beam guns. Similarly to what happened with the Seawiz guns, they exchanged raw power for more shots and a higher rate of fire. This was especially useful for suppressing enemies during close range encounters. Finally then, for heavier firepower, it had the Scorpion railgun that was mounted on its shoulder-mounted shield. Combine all of this then with a power extender that offered the Blue Duel a longer operating time, and you've got a machine that you can play with for a very long time. The second and final duel variant that we know about then is the Librarian Works' Regen Duel. Another lighter and more streamlined interpretation of the original Duel and Assault Shroud combo. And when it came to this machine, the armor was reduced even further than with the Blue Duel because they wanted to preserve as much weight as possible in order to make this machine faster and more agile. Something that was also helped by the new thrusters on its shoulders. The main focus of this redesign instead lay with the different weapons that it had at its disposal and the ability of its pilot, Kate Madigan, to make the most of them. In fact, this is where the name of the machine came from. Regen is German for rain, an allusion to how this machine would make it rain blood on the battlefield. And with its varied weapons, it could do so at any range. For long range, it relied on the Bazooka Striker Pack, a custom-made striker pack from the Launcher Striker, but instead of having the Agni, it now had a 350mm rail bazooka. This also meant that it was compatible with the other striker packs. When the battle moved to mid-range then, Kate would ditch his striker pack and switch to the 57mm high-energy rifle and the Rudra rail rifle, a handheld variant of the Duel's Shiva railgun. And then when the battle became close and personal, he relied on his 2 beam sabers and 2 head-mounted Eaglestellung Seawiz guns. One interesting adjustment to accommodate this tendency of ditching weapons was made to the ankle joint. They were strengthened in order to deal with the constantly changing weight that they were subjected to. And that has been all for the development history of the Duel Gundam, the first mobile suit ever to be constructed by the Earth Alliance, and one whose design would influence their future mobile suits for years to come. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and stay tuned for more similar videos in the future. As always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope everyone watching has a great day, and I'll see you all next time.